So when people talk about modes, the default assumption is that we're talking about the 7 modes of the major scale: Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, etc. I have a whole bunch of other videos on those if you're interested. However, the word mode in music theory terms is a little bit more broad than just that. All a mode really is a scale that's derived from another scale, by taking the pattern of whole steps and half steps from the parent scale and shifting it over to start on a different place. In other words, if you take a C major scale and make any note other than C the root note, you get a mode. Now, longtime viewers of the channel will know that I hate this way of explaining modes, because if you stop here in your explanation, you leave out literally everything interesting and useful about them. But I do recognize that understanding this parent-mode relationship between scales can be valuable too, particularly in finding modes of scales besides the major scale. There are 7 harmonic minor modes, for example, derived from the harmonic minor scale. There are 2 modes of the diminished scale, although nobody calls them modes: the whole half diminished scale and the half whole diminished scale. Even though the diminished scale has 8 notes, you can only derive 2 modes because the pattern of whole steps and half steps that make up the scale is only 2 entries long before it repeats: whole step, then half step. There are 7 major modes because the pattern of whole steps and half steps in the major scale can't be reduced into any smaller patterns than this 7-note string. Whereas the whole tone scale doesn't have any modes because its pattern is just one repeating whole step over and over. If you have your major modes down cold and you're looking for something a little tastier, a hard mode of the same idea to dive into and explore, you may want to take a look at the melodic minor modes. The melodic minor scale, for those who aren't aware, is a minor scale with the 6th and 7th notes raised up a half step. Or you could think of it as a major scale with the major third lowered down to a minor third. And none of this, you play it this way going up and then you flatten the 6th and 7th going down nonsense. That's a scale exercise. That's not a helpful tool to analyze any actual music. This is my jazz nerd, classical nerd rivalry coming out here. Anyway, the thing that's so interesting about melodic minor is that there are 2 tritones present in the scale. Where the major scale features 1 tritone between the 4th and the 7th, the melodic minor scale features this same tritone as well as one between the flat 3rd and the natural 6th. All the major scale modes, sharing the same pattern as the major scale, naturally each contain 1 single tritone, and it's arguable that the characteristic sound of each mode comes from where this tritone gets placed relative to the root, as I went into in my video on the Ionian mode. All the melodic minor modes have 2 tritones, and that leads to some very complex and, dare I say it, dank sounds. Let's go through the 7 melodic minor modes one at a time and figure out what they sound like and what they might be used for. I will say up front that most of them don't see any play in video game music, because some of them are pretty wild, but they'll still be fun to play around with if you're inclined to play around with scales. I'll give video game music examples when I can, and my own concoctions when I can't. First, let's just take a look at the melodic minor scale itself.
The melodic minor scale.
A minor sound with a raised 7th is striking, and probably immediately makes you think of James Bond.
I'm fucking James Bond. Shot back and blow your fucking head off. Twat.
I love the way Castlevania Symphony of the Night uses this scale in Dance of Pearls to create a sense of gothic elegance. Besides this section that literally runs up the E melodic minor scale over an E minor chord, the main theme of the tune also centers around the sound of the major 7th used over a minor chord, with the melody hitting us over the head with one right from the get-go. Whether using the motion of the scale or just the tonic minor major 7 chord, the melodic minor scale has a potent sound.
The Dorian flat 2 scale.
You'll notice most of these modes are named after a corresponding major mode with some alteration. The second mode of the melodic minor scale is a minor scale with a raised 6th and a flattened 2nd, just like the Dorian mode but with a flat 2. Hence the name Dorian flat 2. Although it makes just as much sense to call the Phrygian raised 6th scale. But I haven't heard that before, so this is one that you won't find examples of in game music, or if you do, please let me know where. It's a complex sound. It's Not really dark enough to be useful for dark, intense settings, but it's too dissonant to be used for really anything else.
The Lydian Augmented Scale.
This next one might be my personal favorite. The third melodic minor mode is a major scale with a raised fourth and a raised fifth. It's got the sharp fourth like the Lydian scale, but building a chord off of the tonic note gives us an augmented chord, hence the name the Lydian Augmented Scale. This is the scale of the major 7 sharp 5 chord, which is a stunning sound, so bright you can hardly look at it. I haven't found an example from a game yet, unfortunately, but you can use it as a fake-out resolution. Where you would normally resolve to a major chord, turn it into a Lydian augmented chord instead to invoke irreparable stank face in your audience.
The Lydian Dominant Scale.
The fourth mode of the melodic minor scale is possibly the most common, maybe aside from the actual melodic minor scale itself. It's a Mixolydian scale with a sharp fourth, giving us a combo Lydian and dominant sound. The track The Great Unknown from Destiny by the legendary Marty O'Donnell showcases the otherworldly sound of the scale beautifully. The piece is written for choir, with different parts using the C Lydian dominant scale gradually layering in over top of a low C bass pedal. The first 2 voices come in and perfectly capture the sound of the mode, with both the flat 7th and raised 4th emphasized. When the lower voices come in, they walk straight up the C Lydian dominant scale from the 2nd up to the root, the 7-note pattern shifting its place against the straight 8-beat pattern above it as it repeats. For a less ethereal use of the sound, Chibi Robo's A Maiden's Thoughts opens on a G Lydian dominant chord. The melody walks around the sharp 4th over top of a G9 chord, injecting a sense of strangeness into the piece. The way the wailing melody reaches up to that sharp 4th at the beginning really captures the tumultuous inner feelings of a young maiden / caterpillar chew toy in love.
The Mixolydian Flat 6 Scale.
The Mixolydian Flat 6 scale is a major scale with a flat 6 and a flat 7. Kind of the opposite of the melodic minor mode, actually. We should call this one the unmelodic major mode. No, that's a dumb idea. Let's stick with Mixolydian Flat 6. Oftentimes in classical music, minor key pieces will use a dominant 5 chord borrowed from the parallel major key, as the voice leading from a raised 7th to the tonic is so much stronger than the diatonic flat 7 to 1, and it creates a much clearer resolution. So what'll happen is a minor key piece will be using notes from the minor scale, and then when it's time for a dominant 5 chord to come and set up a return home, the melody will make use of the raised 6th and 7th of the key on its way back up to the tonic. This probably won't sound all that weird or dissonant to you compared to the other melodic minor modes, since it's relatively common, especially in music that's trying to sound vaguely classical. In The Flatlands from Octopath Traveler, we see a D7 chord use both an E natural and a B flat over top, the 2 notes that are characteristic of Mixolydian Flat 6. It moves into a G major chord, not a G minor, but still. Notice how the E natural is moving up to an F sharp to get to the G in the resolution chord. Lots of minor key 5 chords use the flat 9th because it lends itself well to moving down for a resolution, but when you want an upward moving resolution, the Mixolydian Flat 6 scale might be the way to go.
The Locrian Sharp 2 Scale.
The sixth mode of the melodic minor scale will stop you in your tracks. It's a Locrian scale with a flat 3, flat 5, flat 6, and flat 7, but with a natural second. This is not a sound that I've ever heard in a video game. You'll have to go check out some Herbie Hancock or Chick Corea if you want to hear it in practice. You can use it when you really want to get the audience's attention, with a half-diminished chord with the natural ninth on top. Or use the scale over top of a chord that would be minor normally, but change the chord to have a flat fifth for a little extra stank.
The Altered Scale.
The seventh and final mode of the melodic minor scale is a must-know for jazz nerds. It features not one, not two, but all four altered extensions that you could possibly fit over a dominant chord, hence the name Altered Scale. The scale technically should be spelled like so: 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. But as we all know, a flat 4 is just a more confusing way of writing a major third. So what we get in practice is the root, the major third, and the flat seventh of a chord, and then all of the altered extensions crammed in between these chord tones. So think of it like this: root, flat 9, sharp 9, third, sharp 11, flat 13th, flat 7. This is a great way of stankifying your dominant chords. Most often you'll see the altered scale used in the form of dominant sharp 9 chords, usually arranged in the voicing made famous by Jimi Hendrix. Root on the bottom, third, flat 7th, and sharp 9th on top. You'll see shifting 7 sharp 9 chords used in the intro of "I'll Take You There in My American Car" from Chibi Robo. This example ends up getting more of a classic rock and roll sound than anything too weird or dissonant. The menu theme from Super Smash Bros. Melee closes off with this awesome G over C sharp to C over F sharp move that sets up a return to the B minor beginning. Playing a major triad a tritone away from your root implies an altered sound, as it gives you the flat 5th, flat 7th, and flat 9th from the scale. I hope you enjoyed this look into the melodic minor modes. I've gotten a bunch of comments throughout my major mode series asking me to talk about them, so even though there aren't tons of game music examples to use, I figured I should lay them out for you guys. If you enjoy what I do, please consider donating to my Patreon page. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.